because 3 months is a protected one on the list of our protected leaves. In addition, I would encourage you to ask, did the person utilize the resources to be sure they explored and exhausted all of our leave options? So both our principals, our managers, our department heads, we train them regularly on leave administration. We help them compassionately lead. And so that means that they should be familiar with our leaves that are available in unique circumstances. They also, of course, should lean on my team, my human resources team, to guide and support each and every applicant through our myriad of leaves. So, for example, sometimes an employee may think they're eligible for one type of leave, not actually be eligible for that leave, but we're able to offer up, here's another type of leave we think your circumstances will help you be eligible for, and here's that application process. In addition, if the person did check and was not eligible for protected leave, then dig a little deeper. Why were they not eligible? Some of these leaves, for example, a healthcare provider has to provide documentation that we, of course, review and make sure it meets legal criteria. Some of these laws are federal laws, some of these are state laws, and some of these are our own local policies and regulations. So again, to be good stewards of taxpayer money and the time that ties to that money, we do have to apply those rules fairly and equitably across the board and be sure, for example, if we were audited, that we show we doled out leave in a fair manner and each and every employee that's granted leave was actually eligible for that leave. It wasn't just a manager being generous or nice or feeling that was a preferred employee in that situation. So HR you can think of as a bit of the neutral gatekeeper for that leave administration. Did that answer that question?
Why do we have these cases if there is a safety net, as you said?
Yeah, so
it seems like all of a sudden we're seeing quite a few of these.
Yeah, so what you're seeing that I think is in sort of the all of a sudden arena is that we are being very mindful on the accountability aspect of the leave. So the leaves themselves, there's always been a neutral leave policy and regulation. We are being very mindful that not exceeding that 15 days in a year is being applied equitably. In addition, in some circumstances, if you don't have any accrued paid leave because you depleted all that leave, you're not going to be eligible to show up at work and have an unpaid day, with the exception of extreme circumstances. So most of our protected leave relates to the employee's own health condition. It does relate to the health conditions of, as I mentioned before, a parent, a child, or a spouse or a partner. It does need to be a current health condition. And then, of course, we have other kind of leaves that cover everything from jury duty, court appearances, bereavement. We give 3 paid days for bereavement leave. So the combination of a leave balance plus additional leaves for a large percentage of the employees, they never deal with any sort of high absenteeism or termination. So the situations you're hearing about, they've truly exhausted every single leave available to them. And they are folks who have over years had chronic absenteeism, and therefore they're finding themselves in that situation. But it's not without careful review.
Yeah. I wanted to ask about, you said the district has seen high absenteeism down by 40%. I wanted to ask why is that? What do you think is the cause of that?
Yes. We have had principals especially give us some feedback that since we have been more vocal about our policies and our regulations, as well as provided enhanced support to principals and managers to have them see a clear line of sight on the leave data for their employees, that they are able to understand that they will be supported as they address absenteeism problems on their campus or in their department. So I think of it as sort of layering of the support and the expectation on the accountability, all in the name of being there for the students who are waiting for that teacher to show up that day, or, you know, the combination of all of our efforts each and every day are impacting that student. There just is a different mindset of an employee who states, if at all possible, I am going to show up to work each and every day that is in my work duty calendar. And then the mindset of, I think I will take some days off here and there, regardless of the impact on the students that I serve. And then, as I mentioned, there are very legitimate situations where an employee just cannot show up to work for something related to themselves or a family member.
And a brief follow-up there, you know, we've heard from teachers throughout the year that they're concerned that even if they take their allowable absences, they'll get memos, or they could, that there'll be concerns raised about the absences that they're taking. And so I'm wondering if you think that that is causing teachers to take less absences, like this accountability that you're mentioning, and what you think about the fact that maybe teachers are feeling discouraged from taking these absences because they're worried about getting memos or being written up.
That's really concerning to me, because I would hate for that to be that they don't understand all the leaves available to them, and that they are absolutely allowed to take up to 15 days of paid leave on top of all those generous paid vacations. To be clear, our teachers they work 187 days in a year. And so when they are expected to show up for those 187 days, and they are focused days, they still have all of the rights to take off all of the paid holidays, plus on top of that, these 15 paid days. I do think each and every employee needs to be mindful of, if they exhaust those days every year, they will not be written up for legitimately exercising their right to use every single day of their leave that they would like to in every year. It front loads again at the beginning of each year. But they may find themselves in a circumstance in a future year where they are facing something unexpected, everything from a car accident or an illness, and they are finding themselves wishing they had paid leave, and they get to the end of a protected leave. As an example, the Family Medical Leave Act allows 3 months of leave, but depending on what's going on with you health-wise, you could extend beyond the 3 months and still need leave. We have temporary disability leave, goes for 180 days. That's about 6 months. You could still need to be out recovering longer than that. If you have been an employee with us for 20 years and you have always shown up each and every day of work that you possibly can, you're going to have most of that leave covered in paid leave days and see no impact on your salary, and you will not be subject to any disciplinary action up to and including a recommendation for termination. So each and every employee is responsible for how they want to personally strategize, if you will, in terms of when they want to utilize leave and when they don't. We don't micromanage that yearly use, but we will continue to apply the leave policies equitably.
Joe is letting me know he's monitoring things on Zoom, and I guess we have a limited amount of time before we would have to restart on Zoom. So Joe's letting me know that we should quickly turn to Zoom. Do we have any questions from the attendees who are with us virtually? And can you all hear us?
Yeah, if you go to the microphone.
Okay. Jess, would you mind understanding the?
You bet. So we're wondering if we have any questions from those participating virtually.
All right. Well,
I don't see anyone raising their hand. If you guys have a question, go ahead and raise your hand so we can open up your mic.
okay, well, it doesn't seem that we have any virtually. Any other questions from here in the room? Yes, please.
Since the state intervention, has internal enforcement of leave policies changed in any way in Espanol, if possible?
We will, let me see if we can get someone to translate that for you.
Yeah, English is fine too.
Okay, so proceed on answering in English and then.
Yes, please.
Okay. The expectations for students are, of course, an extreme focus since the state takeover. I do not think you can address student success without hand in hand addressing whether teachers are standing in front of students. We call it, how many touch days do we have in front of students? Our students in Houston ISD will be sitting for the same standardized tests as students all across the state of Texas. If Houston ISD is in some way lax on their teacher attendance, just as an example, while surrounding districts or districts anywhere in the state apply their leave policies equitably, it's just common sense that our students are not set up for success. They will not perform as well on those tests if they have less of these touch days, meaning days that teachers are there in front of them. The quality of the education when we have a substitute suffers. We do have some layers of staff in place as well. So not only are we addressing attendance accountability, we also are doing some very creative things in terms of having other professional roles to shore up when a teacher absolutely needs to be out. And I don't want to confuse the enforcement of the leave policies with in any way the district not being compassionate about personal life needs. Because again, as I said, sort of colloquially, life is curvy. And we do understand that each and every one of us will have a circumstance probably sometime in our life where we cannot attend work each and every day. But we highly encourage, especially when students are there, for the staff to be present.
For follow-up, do you think that leave policy enforcement is going to have any effect on staff retention?
I think we're going to have staff that are all in, and we're going to have staff who have engaged in chronic absenteeism over the years, that this will bother them. And I think that's not a bad thing. The staff that are all in, I will tell you the feedback we've received and received from their managers is a feeling that they're being treated with fairness and equity. We all know if you are the person that shows up and you look to your left and you look to your right and your colleague is once again not in attendance, that can have a negative impact on employee morale. So I think that's actually something I didn't mention, but I think actually employee morale for quality staff will be improved as well as the student outcomes.
Yeah, I was curious if you have any data on the number of teachers who have left this year, or this month compared to last year. If you know what the cause for that is, it's because of PTO usage or what the causes that.
We track data very carefully in the spirit of wanting to understand which of our staff choose to stay at Houston ISD, and then if they don't choose to be with us, why? And myriad of reasons, as you can imagine. We have everything from retirements to relocations. So we actually do carefully have the manager in concert with HR complete exit information so that we always have that data. We do have, as part of that data, that they left possibly for exceeding the absenteeism, so long as it's not one of the protected leaves that I mentioned. We obviously, we would know they left because maybe they exhausted a 3-month, a 6-month leave and didn't have any leave available and they chose to resign. The majority of employees will choose to resign rather than being terminated for high absenteeism.
But you don't have the number for this month.
Margaret, I'm
Not off the top of my head, but yeah.
just gonna go to Margaret next. Haven't even noted.
When you say, so I can understand this better, when you say someone has up to 15 days, can they just say, I'm off for the next 3 weeks? I'm off. I mean, and what, is there a limit on the chunk that they can take off? Do they have to say what it's for? And can they, do they get in trouble if they take off every Friday and Monday for the next month?
And by the way, I'd be remiss if I didn't say it's very impressive you're at work today with that. You obviously have a sore throat. Yeah, yeah. So there are some rules on the when you can take a leave day for campus-based staff, and that is in the regulation. So for example, for campus-based staff, if it's an elective leave, meaning you're just taking it because you just don't want to go to work that day, not because you're unable to go to work. If it's just you're choosing not to report to work, you can't do that more than 2 days in a row for campus-based staff. And I hope the policy behind that, the drive behind that rule is obvious. Once a student has multiple days of having their regular teacher not in front of them, the negative impact on their progress is even greater. The other rule for campus-based staff is you can't be absent the day before or after a holiday. So as we're coming up on a holiday, the reason behind that, if it's not obvious, is we could find ourselves in a situation where we do not have enough substitute employees to cover or proper operational support at a staff, a campus, or a department. And so we don't want to risk that degree of operational breakdown or the negative impact on the learning.
Somebody, and I had an employee like this, so that's what I'm asking.
Yes.
Starts taking on his Fridays off. Is that a management thing that you're looking at?
And that's a great example of why it's 15 days. It's applied neutrally.